No, it's okay. It's okay. All right, let's start with obeisance to Manjushri. Just a second. I'll put the prayers on the screen. Obeisance to Guru and protector Manjushri who holds at his heart a scriptural text embodied of his seeing all things as they are, whose understanding shines forth as the sun, unclouded by defilements or traces of ignorance, who teaches and seeks the ways with a patient love of Father for his only Son, all creatures caught in the prison of samsara, confused with the darkness of overwhelmed by their suffering. You as drug and thunder proclamation of the Dharma arises from the super of our delusions and frees us from the chance of our karma, whose powerful sword of wisdom hews our suffering wherever its sprouts appear, clearing away the darkness. Trichu Manjushri, princely bodies adorned with the 100 marks of the Buddha, who has completed the 10 stages, achieving the highest perfection of a Bodhisattva, who has been pure from the beginning. O Manjushri, O loving one, with your brilliance of your wisdom, illuminate the darkness and close in my mind, enlighten my intelligence and wisdom so that I may gain insight into Buddha's words in the text, but explain them. Sangye chodan tsoki chonan la chanchu badu dani kya suji dagi chunyengi betsonangi dola benchi sangye dupasho sangye chodan tsoki chonan chanchu badu dani kya suji dagi chunyengi betsonangi dola benchi sangye dupasho. Do we do it twice or 3 times? All right. Chodan sogi chonam la chanchu badu dani kya suchi dagi chinyengi betsonangi dola penchi sange dopashu. In my morning meditations, I recite this verse at the beginning of the practice, and sometimes also not unconcentrated, that I think myself, that's not good. So I kind of go back to setting my motivation, then do another set of 3 refuge and bodhicitta. And if I find that that's not enough, not moving the mind enough, then I do it again until I have the right motivation.
I rejoice.
Well, not always, but mostly. Okay, so what I wanted to do today was to yeah, that's correct. So what I wanted to do today, I'll speak about that in a second, Paul. So to cover maybe 2 of the root downfalls, to continue with that, and then to just complete the discussion of the 9-point death meditation, because this is the, I think, more complete and arranged meditation that we use for the explanation that Shantideva gives here for the power, power of regret. And then, what else do I wanted to do? All right, and I also wanted to then look at what we've covered today to link it up with the power of support. So, before we go back to looking at the root downfalls, then Paul is saying that his Holiness and Geshe-la recommend the 3rd line to be recited as Tsong Nam Gi. That's correct. Yeah. So actually, maybe what I can do is I can go, as we do it, just a second, I'll go to our Dropbox, BP prayers, BP prayer book, and I'll correct it. So I'll just put it on the screen for everyone. All right, so Paul is saying that in the 3rd line, Dagi chunying gibe sonam gi. So instead of so, we're going to say so. So what it means is when we look at a translation, it says, from the virtuous merit that I collect by listening to the teaching. So it's honest, the Dalai Lama's recommendation, he said that a few times in his teaching, he says that not only we want a merit to influence, not only we want our listening to the teachings to influence the accumulation of merit, we also want it to contribute to the accumulation of wisdom, right? So the two collections. So the word sok means accumulation. So we can say from the accumulations that I collect by listening to the teachings, may I attain the state of the Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. So that's, thank you very much for that, Paul. This that accords with His Honest's recommendation. And I think that all of our teachers take it on board, so should we. Anyway, thank you for that. Another thing that I wanted to say, in just kind of referring to the things that we've discussed at the end of yesterday's sessions. No, so we spoke about death and impermanence, and I made that comment that, I'm 49, almost 50, and I feel that maybe I have 20 or 30, 20, 25, 30 good years ahead of me, if I get to that age. Sometimes I feel that, it's like, I don't know if it's not ageism, I'm not kind of, I don't want to disparage or put down people or make them discouraged, but really when you think about our ability to get involved with really intense Buddhist practice, our ability declines as we get older, so 15 years ago in a conversation I had with my teacher, he scolded me and said that if I still continue to be a bit fickle about my what I do with the Dharma, it would be too late soon for me to be a kind of a serious, genuine practitioner. So I think that at the time I didn't know how to put it in a certain context. But now when I look at what it probably meant when he said that 15 years ago, now it comes from this background where you go on and do a 3-year traditional Kamakagi retreat, where for 3 years you don't lie down. You sit also all night cross-legged in a meditation box. And you do also during the day you do you do a lot of meditations, but also yogic exercises in which you leap up in the air and so forth. So I think that now obviously I can't do that. I mean, I might be able to force my body to do certain things, but I don't think that I can sit cross-legged in a full Vajra posture. My hips don't lie, basically. They're too rigid now. I won't be able to force my body into that. I won't be able, I think, to do that leaping up in the air, the things that you really need to be young and energetic to be able to pick it up. So in that sense, as we grow older, we can do less and less of those things. So, it's also quite interesting. Sorry? Physical things, but also I think that when your body is less amenable to physical hardship, also I think that your mind also loses sometimes its ability to keep up, but there's still teachings that are taken from the mind training tradition that say that even if I die tomorrow, today I will train my mind. I will continue to study. So of course we can continue to study till we're 70, 80, 90. It's honest that Dalai Lama actually embodies that attitude, but still it becomes harder if we're not trained to do that. So particularly when you look at the death and impermanence meditation, where you start kind of thinking of how much time I really have. If I have, he says that take out, if I think of 20 or 30 years of good practice that I might have, 10 years is spent sleeping, let's say 7-8 hours a day, so 1/3 of it I can strike out. Then the time spent on eating, buying groceries, surfing the net and so forth, actually kind of seriously swimming, but that's virtuous. Swimming, synchronized swimming, Yeah.
Shaving your head.
In the daytime.
I mean, sometimes it's quite shocking because I have days where I think that, wow, you know, I was able to engage in quite a lot of Buddhist activities. So, you know, to do my morning meditation, then teachings with Geshe Tsultrim in the morning, then something afternoon, like a session afternoon, then something in the evening in between doing some study. And then I think to myself, wow, that was like a good day. I did 7 hours or 8 hours of being involved with the Dharma to a certain degree. But when you think about it, it's actually not that often. You know, we have days like that, but it's not that every day is like that. So when you then start to when you start to count how much, you know, how many hours a day you are involved fully with the Dharma, it's kind of, it doesn't leave a lot. So, you know, out of, I don't know, the 30 good years that I might have ahead of me, how many years at the end will be years of solid Dharma practice? It's quite questionable, at least in my mind. Anyway, so I wasn't planning to discourage people or to look down on people or what have you. It reminds me that a few years ago I was visiting my sister. She lives at a kibbutz at the north of Israel, and they have I think that it's a medium-sized kibbutz, so they have a few hundred people or maybe a couple of thousands. I don't know how many residents they have in the kibbutz, but they asked me to give a Buddhist talk. So I gave them a list of topics that I could think of just within like a span of 5 minutes, and they chose death, you know, death from a Buddhist perspective. So I was pretty enthused about it because I thought that, you know, that's one of the things I like to meditate on. And as it happened, I think that I had maybe 30 or 40 people that came out to the talk. I think that 95% of them looked like they're 70 plus and non-Buddhist, and I had to talk to them about death and impermanence. I felt totally uneasy about it. I didn't know how to approach it in a skillful way, so I just gave them the whole spiel. I didn't think they went down quite well. I don't think that if I gave another talk, then they would show up. They would have shown up. So anyway, so death and impermanence. So Olaf is saying Dharma practice can also be mixed with the 8 worldly concerns, and so even less time in genuine practice. Thank you. Yeah, I totally agree with that, Olaf. So with that in mind, let's cover 2 more downfalls. So I think the last thing that we've covered yesterday was crushing towns and so forth. I had a look also at Thupten Chodron's commentary with respect to crushing towns and so forth. She made that comment about nowadays people having sense of disregard to the environment, burning forest, and having a sense of disregard to living beings living in those environments. So I think that definitely all of us can can relate to that point. I'm not totally sure that if you destroy ants nests or, you know, burn forests, definitely you kill many living beings. I'm not sure that it would constitute destroying a city.
But it could be something like, you know, if you're a pyromaniac that can start a bushfire.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well,
a lot of people's livelihood comes out of that forest, you know. I mean,
yeah.
They say that, you know, logging towns, they do exist.
Yeah.
It's even bad, but, you know, if you mention destroy, you would be destroying a lot of towns.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, it's not a, no, I said that it would come under the umbrella of all the different things that are detrimental, not only to a small group of individuals, but by and large to all living creatures living on this planet. So yeah, anyway, so that's the last thing that we've covered yesterday. Then the next one says, if you teach emptiness to an unsuitable vessel for emptiness, or if by teaching emptiness you instill a fear in a sentient being who has generated a mind seeking complete enlightenment, and he or she subsequently turns away from the mind of enlightenment to generate a Hinayana attitude, it is a root downfall of teaching emptiness to an untrained mind. Or in this 6th-session Guru Yoga, it was translated as teaching voidness to those untrained. Untrained, it is the sense of being unprepared or spiritually unripe. So it's this is also something that is quite interesting. I think that not many of us find ourselves in situations where we have to give emptiness teachings. You know, we might find ourselves sometimes having discussions with others, or someone might ask us a question about what does the view of selflessness or emptiness mean within Buddhist philosophy. So, we can give some explanation according to what we understand from this topic, but it seems that sometimes the audience that we talk with might not be educated enough to develop wrong views from the very get-go. I mean, but you do hear about lots of wrong views about emptiness amongst a crowd of Buddhists. Like, for example, some people fall into a nihilistic approach, thinking that it doesn't really matter because things are empty. Don't worry about it, it's empty, or that kind of nihilistic approach, or anyway, it's all good because things are empty. So I think that sometimes we're prone to taking it too lightly, to almost verge on a nihilistic approach. But the idea behind this this root downfall is that suppose that there is someone that has really thought through the topic of emptiness or selflessness. So it's not that they just take it lightly. They actually think about the material, but the end result is generating a wrong view. So if the person is generating a wrong view and completely freaks out that nothing exists, they don't exist, nothing whatsoever exists, and therefore it doesn't really matter what type of actions you take, because at the end of the day it wouldn't matter, the result do not exist, and so forth. This is more or less what it seems that what this root downfall is getting at. Now, that's one part of it. So teaching emptiness to those who are unripe, which means that they're not mentally prepared to really hold on emptiness together with conventional existence, to bring these two together, to understand that on one hand, things are empty of independent existence, but it doesn't mean that they do not exist at all, they still exist. So that's one part of it. Also, another issue is that often when teachings on emptiness are given, they're given to an audience, and we have no idea who is in the audience. Or someone like me I don't know the mind of people, I don't know the dispositions of people. I know sometimes some of the people that come to teachings, but certainly not all of them. And I don't know if if I say something that might trigger a certain reaction, a certain wrong understanding. So, it's a difficult territory in that sense.
I just want to mention that I don't think it was very long after I ordained. I've been so-called legally labelled student for quite a long time, but I was asked to give a talk because I was now a Sangha member at a Buddhist conference that was predominantly Theravada practitioners, and I went straight to Geshe Santon and said, I have no qualification whatsoever. What do I do about this? Do I say, give me a different topic, or what do I do? And he said, just focus on dependent origination, just focus on causes and conditions, and at that level. So it was very useful, if one was requested to do something like that, and I felt like I couldn't just say, no, thank you very much, it depends at each level. We don't know people's minds. They may be ready to hear a more in-depth teaching, but I wasn't ready to give one of those, so that was no problem whatsoever. Still not ready for that. But, to be able to just keep it at a very general level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it does also remind me of, of course, His Holiness Lama Zopa Rinpoche, great holy beings. I mean, Rinpoche is always teaching about emptiness, and these days when everything's online, we also don't know who's accessing online.
Yeah.
Those teachings, and there's many teachings out on emptiness.
Yeah, I agree with you. There are so many teachings now available online, but also sometimes I think that, when I think of, for example, is honest giving empowerment or teachings on emptiness to a great number of people. So it seems that on some level since there's now a different approach to those teachings. But then I think, well, just because it's honest does that, it doesn't mean that I can do similar things like that. I'm not at that level. Yeah. So that's, yeah. But certainly agree with your point. But then when we look again at the wording of this explanation, there's something I think that we also need to think of. So it says, if you teach emptiness to an unsuitable vessel for emptiness, so someone that might develop a nihilistic approach, for example, that nothing exists whatsoever, or if by teaching emptiness you instill fear in that sentient being who generates the mind seeking complete enlightenment, and he or she subsequently turns away from the mind of enlightenment to generate a Hinayana attitude, which means that this type of, the scenario that is described here is that you teach emptiness to a certain person, they were intent on becoming Buddha, and now they become so freaked out about it, and they think that I'm not going to become a Buddha, I'm just going to attain the state of liberation. So it's actually, it's a weird scenario, don't you think?
It's a weird scenario.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird scenario because they still need to realize emptiness. So now I was trying to think of what this scenario might mean. So for this, as I said, kind of you need to have a more involved audience, someone that has thought through the philosophical view. So it's not someone that is just you pick up from the street and they, and without having prior knowledge of anything, and you teach them emptiness and suddenly they think that, oh, I don't want to become a Buddha, I want to be liberated. I think that it refers to someone that actually has trained in the system of tenets. So there are those in the system of tenets, there are Hinayana tenets and Mahayana tenets. So Hinayana tenets do not accept emptiness. They speak about selflessness of person, but not selflessness of phenomena. So altogether, we say that they do not accept emptiness, or they do not assert emptiness. What they do assert is selflessness of persons. So let's say that such a person that has the disposition or tendency to follow a Hinayana school of thought, but still from the practice side, they have developed bodhicitta, they have taken the vow. I mean, even if they haven't taken the vow, they have meditated on bodhicitta, they've developed aspiring bodhicitta with that wish to attain the state of Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. So then to that person who has a tendency to, or base in the Hinayana thought, you teach them about emptiness, selfness of phenomena. And then you create a certain fear in the mind, and then they think that I rather stick with the Hinayana school of thought or the Hinayana practices to relinquish the mind of enlightenment. Again, you were teaching emptiness to someone that is not a suitable vessel for those teachings. So is not a proper recipient for those teachings. So again, how would I know? If I were to give teachings on emptiness, how would I know? It's pretty difficult, isn't it? So again, I think that we kind of need to look at it in a really kind of in a general way. Also to understand that there could be different scenarios in which teaching emptiness to different people could cause them to relinquish the mind of enlightenment or to become nihilistic in some sense. So it just...
Isn't it more like a warning to, if you are giving that presentation on the teachings of emptiness, that it has to be a full presentation. And yeah, so that, and taken seriously. Because if you give a balanced view, even somebody who just hears half of the story, have you really caused them to hear that story? Would you present it the whole?
Yeah, it depends on the scenario. It depends on the.
I don't know, but to me,
Yeah.
it seems to me that both the student and the teacher would be at quite a level to even have an understanding of what it is to change their mind.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you're giving a talk on that, and you've got people wondering and you don't know, I don't think at the end of it, oh, well, I'm just going to do this now, because if they had any understanding at all about what they wanted and then listen to the talk. You know what I mean? I think, it would, and it wouldn't just happen in one situation. I think, this is about somebody who's, like I say, obviously already studied, knows a view of it, and they're probably seeking this specific teaching. So then, as a teacher, if you were to do this and create it, that's the effect. I personally looking at this, I don't see it as just a
I tend to agree with you. I'll just repeat what you said for the sake of the people at home that might not have had it. So, and I'll try to maybe just mention the gist of it because I can't remember, repeat it verbatim, like that. Anyway, so you said that to you it seems that the scenario refers to a teacher and students that meet together for, let's say, a discourse on the teachings on emptiness, rather than just giving teachings and someone kind of coming into the teaching space and listening to those teachings and then developing one view. So it's not about those teachings that those people that all of a sudden arrive at those teachings. It's more like if you already have a teaching scenario where you have a course or a set of teachings, and the assumption is that the students should not be someone that is just kind of plucked out of the woodwork, so to speak, but they have some background in Buddhism. So if you teach amongst them emptiness to those who are unripe or not ready for those teachings within that scenario, you then might incur that root downfall. Yeah, that's kind of heading. Yeah.
It's just a more direct level on emptiness.
Yeah. That's cool. Thank you. So maybe we're not going to go into the next one because it's 3:28, and I want to make sure that we also cover more of the death meditation and then also look at what we've covered today and yesterday. So while we're looking at the 9-point death meditation, just because Shantideva, let's look at the outline. Second. All right, because Shantideva in the first power, it speaks of cultivating regret but fearing the prospect of dying while still in possession of the negativity and going for refuge. That's the power of regret. And there's also, we also spoke of cultivating regret by reflecting on the way one has performed pointless negativities, particularly thinking of, for example, how things become only an object of memory at the time of death, and how we pursue unreliable things and so forth, which is also a cause for negativities. And then reflecting on the way in which negativities bring about fear. And there's also, again, a reference to death is certain as you cannot add to your lifespan, yet it decreases without respite. And to die while still in possessing negativity is fearful. So there's quite a lot of references to death and impermanence. And I think that if you haven't done a lot of death and impermanence meditations before that, things might become a bit patchy if you only think of Shantideva's presentation. So it's good to have kind of a really strong backbone of the meditation on death and impermanence. So we said yesterday that we have 3 roots. Death is certain, the time of death is uncertain, and at the time of death, nothing will be of help apart from the Dharma. Now, we said that then, with respect to each one of the points, there are 3 reasons that we use, or 3 additional reasons for each one of them, coming up with 9-point death meditations altogether. So death is certain in that the lot of death will certainly come and it cannot be avoided. death is certain in that our lifespan decreases and we cannot add to it, it cannot be extended. And then death is certain in that even when we're alive, there is so little time to practice the Dhamma. So this is how we ended up speaking about old age. So those are the first three reasons pertaining to death is certain. Now the second point is that the time of death is uncertain. So the first point in that meditation is a little, I think, awkward. I mean, awkward in the sense that it requires faith in this presentation, which is based on the teachings of the Buddha. It says that in this continent, which is called Jambudvipa, our lifespan is uncertain, whereas in other realms of existence, in other continents, there is this fixed lifespan, which means that if you're born with a fixed lifespan of 1,000 years, you will definitely live for 1,000 years. So there are apparently places in samsara that are like that. We unfortunately don't have that scenario. Maybe actually it's fortunate that we don't have that scenario. Imagine that if you, yeah, or kind of imagine, yeah, or imagine how it would be like if you know that your lifespan is definitely 100 years, and then you get to 90s and you kind of suddenly realize that you haven't done a lot in your life, or that you have done certain things. You wouldn't know what to do in order to remedy them, and time. No, it's just like they say that when you know that you're going to be executed and to take you to the gallows, and each step that you take is getting you closer to the moment of death, and your mind is full of fear. It's like that if you know that. It would be maybe similar if you knew if a lifespan would have been fixed. So the first point is that in our continent, the lifespan is not fixed. It's not certain. That's the first point. Now, the second point is that there are so many causes for death, so few conditions or causes that keep us alive. So here I think that we also speak about it quite a lot. First of all, death is guaranteed in a sense that the cause for death is birth. Now, so because we were born, we will definitely die. So that's to begin with. But also, in that sense, when we look at the environment that we live in, so many dangerous things happen around us all the time. You just don't know when it's going to happen to you. Sorry?
When coronavirus.
Yeah, when coronavirus is going to come along in apocalyptic scenario. And there are so few conditions that can actually keep us alive. And then they say that, and even those conditions that keep us alive can at some point turn to be those that expedite our dying process. So taking the wrong medication, overdosing on medication, wrong combination of medication and so forth. Those things that are supposed to be supportive of life can actually cause a death. So this is linked up with the third point in relation to the uncertainty of the time of death, is that the body is so fragile. So it requires just a little thing to cause a death. I mean, sometimes when I think about it, I think that being bitten by, for example, a funnel web spider, I think that there's just a small bit of venom that they inject into the body, probably not just a droplet, and that's it. It's game over. Yeah, with COVID, you cannot even see that. It's just those small trivial conditions that can mean game over for us. So those are the 3 points pertaining to the uncertainty of the time of death. Then the 3 points that belong to the point of at the time of death, nothing will be of help apart from the Dhamma, is that our possessions will not help, will have to be parted from them at the time of death. All the people that are dear to our heart will not help, will have to leave them behind. And at the end, the things that we cherish the most in our life, the body itself, that we care so much doing, take so many activities, we do so many things in order to take care of the body, often even that will have to be left behind. We cannot take any of them with us. So these are the 9 points, and then you conclude 3 points. You come to 3 decisions or 3 resolutions when you think of death and impermanence. So when you think of the certainty of the time of death, you think, therefore, I have to practice the Dhamma.
Right now.
Well, that's the,
I'm still alive.
yeah, well, that's so when you think of the second point, uncertainty of the time of death, you think, I need to practice right now, or to start right now, because if I postpone it to the future, who knows what's going to happen. Then with the third point, nothing will be of help apart from the Dhamma. The conclusion that you get to is that I need to practice only the Dhamma, in a sense that only the practice of Dhamma can protect me at the time of death. My friends will not help, my possessions will not help, my body will not help. The only thing that can be of help is the Dhamma, or my practice of the Dhamma, in a sense that generating virtuous state of mind, putting imprints in my mind stream. Those are the things that I can take with me to next lifetime, but also those are the things that I can draw from when I approach the time of death. You know, remembering that generating a positive state of mind, a virtuous state of mind, would, on the verge of death, would be the thing that will activate a positive karma, projecting karma, that we have planted on a mind stream, that will take us again to a high status rebirth in the next lifetime. So those things will be of help. That will protect me. So I wanted also to link it up with the practice of the 5 powers. So I'm just going to mention it briefly. There is a set of 5 powers that we can use as an integrated practice of an entire lifetime or single lifetime. And then there are the 5 powers that are used being on the verge of death. So it's not only connected with, I think, with the power of regret, it is also connected with the other powers, like, for example, the power of the basin. So the 5 powers, for example, if you take it as a practice of every day you practice the 5 powers, then you would wake up in the morning, and first of all, you will generate the power of intention, which is also called the power of projection. So you will generate a virtuous intention for the day. There are different ways of doing that, but I think that most of us do it in a similar way. We go for refuge, we generate bodhicitta, we endeavor to benefit, to be of benefit as much as we can, or at least to abstain from harming others. So we set our motivation. We do it on a daily basis. So that also puts seeds in our mind stream, and we draw upon those seeds. We make them stronger. And that's the second power, the power of seeds. So we want to create those seeds in our mind stream that we can draw from, particularly when we will, in the future, get to the moment of death, to the time of death. We do that through the third power, the power of habituation, in which we habituate the mind continually with virtuous states, and the abstention from negative or non-virtuous states of mind. That's the third power. The fourth power is the power of repudiation. And this is where, at the end of the day, we try to purify all the negative actions that we have done in the passing day. So we think of all the non-virtuous states of mind that we have, things that we did not do right, negative actions that we have done. And we can, of course, add to that the reflection on things that we have done in the past, in this lifetime, past lifetimes, that we have made others do, that we've rejoiced in the creation of which, all of them we lay down before we go to sleep. And then we also make aspirational prayers. That's the fifth power, the power of aspiration. So this is what we can do on a daily basis. But then being on the verge of death, and this is also where it's linked up here to this set of teachings, then you have the power of intention. You think that you know that you're getting closer to the time of death. So you think that particularly now I need to be focused. I need to keep a positive state of mind. I don't want to have disruption, in terms of things that might cause anger, anxiety, attachment, and so forth. I want to be focused so that deliberately I will draw upon the positive seeds that I have put in my mind stream, and generate faith, generate the mind of enlightenment, generate compassion to others, generate renunciation, whatever virtuous state of mind we can generate being on the verge of death. We do that through the power of the white seed. And then we also do that with familiarity, right? So we try to sustain that as much as we can. I mean, it's quite, actually, in some sense, we're quite fortunate to be reminded of those things again and again. We're getting closer to John Seale's first anniversary. And when we think of actually the way that she died and the way that she was supported by the community, but I think that the whole process was supportive of maintaining a virtuous state of mind, being surrounded by Dharma friends, being surrounded by people that reminded her of positive motivation. Of course, we don't know what was the state of mind being on the verge of death, but when I think of what would be a good scenario for me to die, that's an excellent scenario. Someone might say a kick-ass scenario, but it's probably not the right way of expressing that. So, yeah. So, if you have those things that can help you to draw upon those positive seeds that you've done before, and then, when I was having conversations with John Seale in the weeks leading up to her passing away, she says that actually she deliberately trying to engage only with virtuous things. If there's something slightly non-virtue, like some conflict or gossip or things that we sometimes get involved with during the day, she deliberately said that she's not getting involved with that. She's just trying to maintain a virtuous state of mind. So that's it, drawing upon positive seeds and also creating, deepening the habituation with that, being on the verge of death. That's an excellent thing to do. Then here, the fourth power is the power of repudiation, in which you again think of all the negative actions that you've done before. You don't feel horrible for them, So it's not like a tool for making you feel horrible being on the verge of death. It's more like you use the opportunity for laying them down. And the power of regret is excellent. You regret them, and you think that henceforth, I should not do them again. I mean, it's actually quite nice when you think about it. If you're on the verge of death and you think that henceforth I should not do them again, well, in this life, at least we won't have the opportunity to do them again. So actually, it can be an empowering thing when you think about it. So then the last part is the power of aspiration, where also being on the verge of death, you're making aspiration not only for a good rebirth in your next lifetime, but to meet the Dhamma, to meet spiritual teachers, so that you can continue with your spiritual progress for the sake of, at the end, attaining the state of Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings, right? So
I just want to mention, since you mentioned John, so that one of the advices from Lama Zopa Rinpoche for her in those last couple of weeks, was for us to read again and again. I think we were reading every day, at least once, the 5 hours for the time of death. So reading just a small section in How to Enjoy Death.
Okay.
A very small section.
From Lama Zopa Rinpoche's book.
Yeah. So
okay.
Advice to read that. A few bits of advice. That was definitely one.
I mean, it's actually quite interesting, because I think that in our society we're, when most people die, you can say most Buddhists die. They die either in nursing homes or hospices. Now many have the opportunity to live in not many, sorry, few people have the opportunity to still die at home with the family. So when we think of what would be a good way for us to pass away, you know, if we can pass away within a supportive community, a Buddhist community, as a monastic or even as a layperson, would be a really suitable supportive situation. So, you know, if you create in some sense the causing conditions for that, when you still have time, it is more likely that you'd be able to enjoy that leading up to your own death. So, you know, living in a community is not always easy, but there are bonuses to that. So, what I also wanted you to remember, and I'll put it in my tutorial notes and put it on the Dropbox, is the 9-point death meditation, because I think that this is really essential also for linking it up here with what Shantideva says here with the power of regret, and also leading up to the next one, which is the power of support. So let's go back to that and quickly cover the outline. So it says, cultivating regret by fearing the prospect of dying while still in possession of the negativity and going for refuge. So also one interesting thing that I wanted to mention is that when you look at the Lamrim structure, you start with the way to rely upon a spiritual teacher. Then while relying upon a spiritual teacher, the stages of training your mind. So you begin with, first of all, an exhortation to make the most out of the precious human rebirth. So that's your meditation. And then when you think that I need to make the most out of it, how do I do that? I do that through training in the sense of the mind of the stages of the path of the 3 scopes being, beginning with the first scope. So the first meditation is death and impermanence. Right? The first meditation of a small scope person is death and impermanence. Second meditation is the suffering of the lower realms. Third meditation is going for refuge. The fourth meditation is on karma, in a sense that once you go for refuge, what you need to do is to probably guard karma, your actions. And within that, having decided that you're going to guard your actions, you also want to purify negative actions that you have done before in cultivating an ethical behavior. So in some sense, it's coming at the end of the topic of purifying negative actions is coming at the end of the presentation of a small scope being. That's the end of the presentation. Here we approach it in a way that is slightly different. It's like here, Shantideva says, when you think of preparing your mind for bodhicitta, then you want to develop regret. One way of developing regret is thinking that I don't want to die without having purified my negative actions. So it seems that that almost like the purification of actions is the thing that makes you think of death and impermanence. Whereas from the Lamrim presentation, first of all, you think of death and impermanence, and after that, you will meditate on purifying your negative actions. So it's good to keep in mind those 2 presentations and see how they actually, you could say, correspond to each other, or they're dependent upon each other, or kind of strongly, I think, interwoven one into another, in a sense that when you think of death, the end result is that you would want to purify your negativities. But also when you purify your negativities, you want to do it in thinking how it is actually quite pointless to behave like that when you think of death and impermanence. So it's not that they're 2 unrelated topics, they're strongly related. So here it says in verses 32 and 33, let's quickly do that. Without having purified my negativity, I will be killed and die beforehand. It should be I will be killed, right? I will kill. Will be killed. Yeah. Please rescue me from this with a method that liberates quickly. The capricious law of death does not rely upon whether it is accomplished or not. Hence, everybody, the sick and healthy, cannot trust their adventitious life. Then, cultivating regret by reflecting extensively on the way one has performed pointless negativities. First of all, regretting negativities we have performed for the sake of close friends, etc. So, leaving behind, I have to depart. Not understanding this, I create manifold negativities for the purpose of friends and non-friends. Non-friends become non-existent, so friends become non-existent. As I also become non-existent, everybody becomes non-existent. So which of the part of the 9-point death meditation you would link up with? Yeah. Yeah, at the time of death, nothing will be of help apart from the Dharma. Then, example of how they become a mere object of memory at death time. Like the experience during a dream, each and every phenomenon we engage becomes also an object of memory. All that is past becomes unobservable. Then regretting having generated negativity for them, although seeing now directly their unreliability. Even during the short time we are alive, many friends and non-friends have passed. The negativity created for their purpose is so unbearable and remains before us. So not only that we pass away, but also the negativities we perform for the sake of the one that are close to our heart. So all to our heart are also enemies. Enemies is a strong word, those that we dislike. Also, they pass away. So what's the point in doing that? Then, regretting having generated negativity by not realizing the uncertainty of the time of one's death. In this way, I'm said to be adventitious because I do not realize this. I generate a multitude of negativities out of ignorance, attachment, and anger. Then in looking at the outline, we are reflecting on a way in which negativities bring about fear. So the first point is, since nothing can be added to life and it runs out continuously, one is definite to die. And if one were to die with negativity, it is frightening. So in the first point of the 9-point death meditation, death is certain. No, the load of death will certainly come and cannot be avoided. And our lifetime, constantly diminishes and cannot be extended. Right? So that pertains to this point. So, as day and night have no abiding, this life is continually becoming less. If there is no adding to the weakening, why should someone like me not die? Why would death not come to someone like me? So if one does not purify negativity, then one must experience suffering even in this life. There are a few points in that section. Let's look at the outline. So one would have to experience suffering in this life as well if negativities are not purified. Friends and loved ones cannot protect you from the suffering of losing one's life if negativities are not cleansed. While I'm lying on my bed, although I'm surrounded by all my relatives and friends, the feelings of being separated from life is experienced by myself alone. When I'm held by the minions of the Lord of Death, what benefits are friends, what benefits are relatives? So that again relates to, at the time of death, nothing will be of help apart from the Dharma. Our friends and relatives will not help, our possessions will not help, our body will not help, and the great anguish of having to be separated from all of them. I mean, it's sometimes quite confronting to try to really imagine that situation where you have to be just separated from all of them, or when you think that that's it, it's ending. It's probably going to be quite terrifying when I think of my own death case. So it is frightening because of not having created merit. At that time, only merit can rescue, but I did not rely on that. then one will be overcome by regret. Protectors, I, this careless one, did not search out these horrors, even though in this impermanent life I accomplished much negativity for them. So this is why in the Lamrim meditation, we begin with death and impermanence, right? If you remember death, you remember the Dhamma. If you do not remember death, you will not remember the Dhamma. So, if we think of, at least for us as Buddhists, if, when we, if I suppose that we'll reach the point in which the predicament would be that let's say that I have an aggressive cancer and I'll be told that I have only 2 months to live or 3 months to live, but it is also likely that in the last few weeks leading up to my death, I will be totally overcome by pain, or that I will have to use morphine or what have you. Then even more so that there would be so little time to really prepare my mind to death. So, it is very likely that I would think that I've wasted so much time. And this is actually what Annie Monk said when she passed away here, also in this community. She was not totally clear about it, but close to her death, she said so much procrastination, so much wasted time in that sense. So, it's good also to think about it when we think of how we do not want to waste the time that we have. You do?
I think it's the same person's in round of enlightenment. It's very like before which is like don't procrastinate or something. Like it's the same person.
Yeah, maybe animal. Yeah, I have to check it out. So, and Annie Monk was like such an exceptional.
And it's interesting. She passed away around this time.
All right. It was actually with Annie Monk. It was she was quite inspirational in the sense that she was a nun for like 40 odd years. She was here and she was totally humble and simple in her approach. And before her death, she thought that it seems that just in her behavior, she thought that she just needs to be surrounded by teachings and so forth. So even when she was sick, when she was in pain, she still came to teaching. She still came to the Gompa. So now sometimes when we get a bit sick, we like stay home and feel sorry about ourselves. That's what I do. But with Annie Monk, she was like totally nailing it before death. That was also quite inspirational about the way that she passed away. So, not letting slip any opportunity. So the reason why it is so frightening, if a person is led today to the place where his limbs will be chopped off, he's frightened. His appearance will differ to before, with a dry mouth, burning eyes, and the like. One will be held by the terrifying helpers of a lot of death and befallen by the terrifying sickness. What need is there to mention the very pitiable? So the way one will be overwhelmed by suffering later is, who can perfectly rescue me from these great horrors, I exclaim. With fear showing in my wide open eyes, I look into the four directions for help. Seeing that there is no refuge in the four directions, my mind becomes completely dark. If there is no refuge in that place, then what shall one do at that time? So this is the power of regret. So it's 4 o'clock. We've just finished the power of regret. So before we leave it here for now, I just want to point out that next is the power of the base, which I think that suddenly dawned on me when I was thinking of this afternoon too, when I was thinking about it at home, that the normal, usually when the 4 antidotal powers are listed, you get to hear about the power of the base, the power of reliance or foundation as the first power. In Lama Tsongkhapa's Lamrim Chemo, in his presentation, it is the 4th one. So for me, it was, and normally we say that the power of the base is refuge and bodhicitta. So you go for refuge and you also develop bodhicitta. So while I understand this presentation, either is presented as the first power or as the last power, here in Shantideva's presentation, I think that this is the, most perfect way of presenting it, in that you first of all think of having committed so many negativities, and then the prospect of dying without being able to, without having purified your negativity. So when you think about it, your mind becomes full of fear, and you think, what can afford protection? What can afford protection is refuge, and then bodhicitta. So in that sense, I think that it's really linked up, I think, to me at least, in the most clearest way when I look at Shantideva's presentation. So, sorry?
Don't wait till you're dying
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah. Don't wait till you die to do it. Do it now. All right. So if I speak about doing it now, let's put the dedication prayers on the board. I'll put, so the 9-point death meditation, I'll put it in the notes, and please go over it, or at least keep it in, memorize the points so that you'll be able to use them in your meditation, and also inform your reflections on this material. Odinyo duda lama sange guyene do achikya malupa de salago pasho chancho sencho rimpoche nake pana kegyochi kepa nyampa me pai gone gondo pewasho kalira we kowe shinkandi pendande wa malu jumene chenre sewan tensing yatsori chape site badu tengyochi so janji jango yawe tenzi kyompewe kumso chosun kowe le mondu pada sodu je kondu shakte. Thank you everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you all.